Welcome to Whispers of the Night. Tonight, let us step into a place where stories breathe and silence speaks. A bookshop at the edge of twilight, where every shelf hums with memory and every corner folds softly into sleep. You've arrived. Just as the light begins to dim, let your thoughts wander slowly now. No need to remember, no need to plan. Only the stillness of pages, the hush between sentences, and the warmth of being read. This is your time to drift inward. And as the shop begins its final quiet hour, the story opens just for you. Take a deep breath in and let it go, slowly, like the last page of a story, fluttering shut in candlelight. You are safe now. There's nothing more to do, no more thinking, no more striving. Just this moment, just this breath. Let the quiet settle in around you like soft dust floating in a sleepy room. The world outside can wait. You've stepped into a slower place now, a place made of paper and whispers, a place that holds stillness gently, like a cup of tea held in two hands. Notice the rhythm of your breath, how it rises and falls, like curtains swaying in a warm breeze, like the soft tide of twilight washing through windows. Let your shoulders soften, let your hands rest. Feel the weight of your body supported completely. No tension, no effort, just the comfort of being held by the quiet, by the dark, by the bookshop that waits behind your eyes. Your thoughts may come and go like visitors. Greet them, then let them wander. There is no need to follow. Here, you are simply resting, listening, drifting. The story is waiting, and sleep is just around the corner. The bookshop that closed at twilight. The dust in the spine. You arrive just as the light begins to change. The alley is narrow and rain-kissed, cloaked in the hush that comes after a long afternoon shower. Street lamps bloom softly in the mist, glowing like memories rather than lights. Water drips from windowsills in slow rhythms. A cat crosses ahead of you, its paws silent on the wet stones. As though it knows the way, you pause before the door. The bookshop leans slightly to one side, its sign faded to the color of steeped tea. The wood beneath your hand feels warm despite the rain, as if it has absorbed centuries of touch. With the gentlest push, the door opens and exhales the scent of old paper, cracked leather, and something deeper, the breath of forgotten words. The bell overhead gives a tired chime. Inside, the air is still, but not silent. It carries the sound of time, soft creaks in the floorboards, the whisper of paper shifting slightly on a shelf, the tick of a distant, unseen clock. You stand still and let it wash over you. This is not the kind of place one rushes through. This is a space made for lingering. Each shelf leans like a shoulder against another, and the books press close, spine to spine, like old friends keeping secrets. Dust catches the light in gentle spirals, stirred only by your breath. You trail your fingers across the edges of the shelves, reading not the titles, but the textures: frayed canvas, ridged leather, brittle parchment curled at the corners. Here, books sleep, but they dream vividly. Your steps are slow as you move. Deeper into the shop, there are no signs, no labeled sections, only the intuition that draws you toward certain colors, certain weights in your hands. You lift a book and feel how it balances in your palm, its heft, a quiet story in itself. Some volumes are so thin they flutter with the draft from your coat. Others feel like anchors, dense with forgotten truths. There is science here, tucked between poems and maps, under pressed flowers and ticket stubs. A field guide to mosses shares a shelf with a diary from a weather station. A small, square book of planetary sketches leans against a volume of letters from a lighthouse keeper. And yet, nothing feels separate. In this space, human wonder stitches all things together. You find yourself drawn to one particular volume, not by its title, which is nearly worn away, but by the way it seems to hum beneath your fingertips. Its spine is dusty blue, the color of twilight. You open it, and a tiny cloud of scent rises. Lavender, paper, and something like cedarwood smoke inside. The ink is faded, but legible. A handwritten note in the margin reads, "Let the dust speak first." So you pause, you breathe, and you listen. Dust is not absence, it is presence layered slowly over time. Skin cells, ash, pollen, the weathered pages of books, too long unopened. All of it swirls in the air, invisible until it rests. In a way, every mote of dust is a memory made physical. It is evidence of being dot. Scientists know this too. They examine cosmic dust drifting between planets, tiny fragments of rock and metal that tell the story of stars long extinguished. Some particles, smaller than grains of sand, contain elements forged in the hearts of exploding suns. The dust that settles on your windowsill might carry whispers from the beginning of the solar system in your hand. The book falls open to a chapter about libraries lost and found. There's a paragraph about the ash that once settled over the library of Alexandria, not just from fire, but from time itself. Ash that mingled with sand, drifted inland, and eventually settled into soil. Soil that grew fig trees, trees that dropped fruit, fruit eaten by birds who sang songs in new places. Dust, too, travels, and you think now of the dust inside your own lungs, not with fear, but with awe, that with each breath you carry the quiet of centuries, particles of stone, skin, pollen, and salt, traveling through your body, through your bloodstream, then back out into the world. A constant exchange. You are not apart from the dust. You are part of its long, gentle journey. The book creaks softly as you turn another page. Here is a drawing, a monk kneeling over an open scroll. Above him, dust motes glow in the slanted light of a stained glass window. The caption reads, "In the scriptorium, silence had weight." And suddenly, you understand. This shop, this room, this moment, it is the same. A hush so deep it becomes presence. A silence that holds space for thought. You close the book reverently. You return it to its place, gently pressing the spine back into the dust it left behind. The air feels thicker now, like honey warmed by lamplight. Or perhaps it is simply your mind slowing, softening, becoming porous to wonder. You notice then, high on a shelf, a narrow door you hadn't seen before. Its handle is brass, dulled by use. A faded curtain hangs beside it, embroidered with stars and vines, and as you step toward it, the floor creaks in welcome. You don't know what lies beyond, but your breath deepens in anticipation. There is always more, isn't there? More stories tucked behind walls, more knowledge beneath the dust, more wonder waiting in the quiet, beyond the shelf and beyond that narrow door. A staircase waits, sloping downward, carved stone, velvet shadows, and the scent of candle wax. Your hand finds the rail, warm from other curious souls, and with the soft hush of dust rising in your wake, you begin your descent into the deeper shelves beneath the stairs. Scrolls beneath stone. Behind a velvet curtain and a crooked stairwell, a narrow passage leads underground. There, nestled in quiet chambers, ancient scrolls and candlelit parchments breathe in the dark. Your thoughts follow the golden inks of medieval scribes, the fading embers of Alexandria, and the press of memory into fragile paper. And in that hush, beneath stone and story, you listen to history murmur itself to sleep. The floor beneath your feet dips slightly as you step behind the curtain, the heavy velvet brushing your shoulders like the closing of a theater's final act. It falls shut behind you with a hush, leaving only the quiet sound of your own breath. The walls are lined with rough stone, cool and uneven as you descend the first of the narrow stairs. Each step creaks not with wood, but with time itself, hollow and slow, as if the centuries echo through the stone. The air grows cooler as you go, scented faintly with wax, old parchment, and something more elusive, perhaps time turned into dust. You imagine the earth above you, thick with years, each layer a sediment of forgotten thoughts. These chambers are older than the shop above, older perhaps than the city itself. The stillness is complete, like the silence between stars at the bottom. The stair opens into a small, domed room, its ceiling arched like a cupped hand. Candles flicker from iron sconces, their light amber and low, pooling into shadows that sway softly across the walls. There are no shelves here. Instead, scrolls rest in alcoves carved from the stone, some wrapped in silk, others in cracked leather or sealed with wax that has long since dried and flaked away. You approach the nearest alcove, your footsteps softened by the ancient dust that coats the floor like a veil. The scrolls are nestled side by side like sleeping animals, their spines curled inward, fragile and still. You reach for one gently, and the texture surprises you. Thick, fibrous, warm, papyrus. The memory of reeds and riverbanks pressed and dried into a vessel for thought. Your fingers unroll it carefully. The ink has faded, but not vanished. Characters still cling to the fibers, drawn with steady hands, long gone from this world. Your eyes trace the script, Greek, you think, though you don't need to read the words to understand their weight. These are not just letters, they are echoes, evidence of minds trying to speak across time. This could be Alexandria, you think, not in name, but in essence, that ancient, fabled library, the dream of knowledge under one roof. Thousands of scrolls collected from ships, traders, scholars, the great endeavor to hold all of human understanding in a single place. It burned, they say, perhaps more than once. No one can say exactly when or how, only that the fire swallowed what memory could not keep. You close your eyes. You imagine the library of Alexandria as it might have been, vast stone corridors, the scent of oil lamps and ink, scrolls arranged in ordered chaos, scholars murmuring over astronomy, medicine, philosophy, thoughts exchanged like lanterns, passed from hand to hand. A world that believed knowledge was sacred and silence was its sanctuary. And then the flames. You picture them licking the edges of parchment, curling ink into smoke. A loss so vast it feels like the breaking of a spell. What thoughts were turned to ash before they ever found another reader? What names, what dreams? You return the scroll gently to its resting place, and your gaze drifts toward another, this one tightly rolled, sealed with red wax, stamped into a circular crest. You lift it, and it resists slightly, as if reluctant to unfold. The wax cracks softly as you peel it away, and the scroll begins to unroll itself. Paper relaxing after centuries of stillness. Illuminated letters rise into view, each beginning a sentence in rich vermilion and gold. This is no casual record. It is a manuscript of care, of patience, likely. You can almost hear the rustle of robes, the soft scratch of quills dipped in ink made from crushed berries and soot dot in your mind. You travel now to a scriptorium, a room lined with long tables where monks bend over their work in near silence. The only sounds, the shuffle of parchment, the breath between strokes, and the quiet hush of prayer drifting beneath the vaulted ceilings. Some write scripture, others copy knowledge salvaged from the ruins of Rome and Greece. Every letter a meditation, every page a shelter for thought. Time here is counted not in hours, but in candles burned to stubs, in pages completed, in books bound in leather and clasped in bronze. These monasteries became the new libraries, fragile sanctuaries, preserving what might otherwise have vanished. They rescued science beneath religion. They copied texts, not for power, but for memory. They whispered history into the darkness. You open another scroll, and now the script is unfamiliar, lines flowing leftward in a script that loops and coils like a winding stream. Arabic. You feel the cadence in the script itself, poetry held in balance with precision, medicine, mathematics, astronomy. You remember that the stars have long been written about, not just watched. The house of knowledge, Beit al-Hikmah, once stood in Baghdad, filled with translators, scholars, dreamers. They gathered light from Greece, Persia, India, Egypt, and refracted it anew. Scrolls passed through desert hands, riding camelback across empires. They survived wars, floods, and the slow erosion of forgetfulness. And somehow, some of them have reached you here tonight, in a room buried beneath a bookshop, where your thoughts drift as slowly as candle smoke. The flames flicker, and you watch one scroll begin to unfurl itself slightly as if stretching in sleep. A whisper of parchment lifts from the floor. You imagine all these scrolls as sleeping, minds curled tightly, but still warm with the dreams they carry. Knowledge is not silent. It just waits for the right silence in which to speak. You sit down on a small wooden bench, its surface worn by others who came before. Perhaps they, too, sat here with scrolls in their lap and questions on their mind. You are not alone in this quiet. You are part of something vast and soft, an underground stream of memory flowing beneath the noise of the world above. You close your eyes. You listen to the faint rustle of pages and the settling of dust. Each scroll you've touched has deepened the hush. Each thought has softened your breath. Sleep edges closer, not in sudden drops, but in ripples, like the echo of a footstep in a distant corridor. And just before you drift deeper, you notice a narrow stone doorway beyond the far wall, slightly ajar, with a trace of breeze curling through it, carrying the scent of mist and ink. Perhaps it leads to the lands where ink is made of rain. Ink made of rain. You open a worn, silk-bound book, and the scent of plum blossoms and river stones floats through the room. Your mind drifts through the gardens of Chinese scholars, where ink is made from soot and rain, and writing is as meditative as breath. In distant deserts, paper caravans cross the Silk Road, their cargo rich with language and lullabies. The world becomes ink, and ink becomes a soft thread, tying minds across centuries. The silk cover feels cool beneath your fingertips, like a breeze, slipping through paper screens. The fabric is worn, but soft, its threads loose in places, as though the book has been opened in quiet rooms for hundreds of years. As you lift the cover, a light breath of scent rises, plum blossoms, distant rain, something earthy and ink. You close your eyes, and for a moment, it's as if the scent alone can carry you into memory not your own. The first page is blank, not empty, but full of potential, like the moment before the first raindrop falls. You imagine a scholar seated cross-legged on a stone veranda, high in the mountains, brush in hand. He pauses before writing, not because he hesitates, but because stillness is part of the art. Ink, here, is not just a tool. It is the joining of elements: pine, soot, oil, glue, and time. It begins as smoke collected from burning wood in clay chambers, cooled and scraped, pressed and mixed with resin, until it becomes a slow black river held in solid form. Ink sticks, they're called, long and carved, sometimes with dragons, or lotus blossoms, or poems pressed into their surface to use them. The scholar pours water into a shallow stone dish, a kind of flat bowl called an inkstone. He grinds the ink stick slowly in circles, letting water pull the darkness free, bit by bit. The act is rhythmic, like breath, like a lullaby. You feel your own breathing mirror his, slow, circular, even. The ink grows darker with each pass, and the stone remembers every movement. There is quiet power in this, that something as fleeting as soot can become something as lasting as a character on paper. Smoke turned solid, then soft again, then story, rain and flame made to speak. You picture the scholar dipping a brush into the fresh ink, then lifting it to write. The brush is made of bamboo, the tip soft hair from goat or wolf or rabbit. There is no harsh point, only soft contact, like wind across silk. He writes vertically, top to bottom, each stroke slow and deliberate. Each character carries balance, weight and breath, pressure and lift. Writing becomes meditation. Language becomes movement. You turn the page and find a new image forming in your mind. A wide river winding through a quiet valley where caravans once passed, traders with bolts of silk, bundles of herbs, stacks of paper wrapped in waxed cloth. The Silk Road was not just for silk. It carried words, ideas, recipes, remedies, philosophy, rolled scrolls tied with cord, books stitched and sealed paper. The gentle revolution, first made from hemp and rags, then from bark and rice straw and mulberry pulp. It spread from China to the world, carried by camel and sail, by scholars and wanderers. A simple sheet could hold a universe, a folded one, a letter, and paper, unlike stone or clay, could be tucked into robes, hidden under pillows, sent across oceans. Your thoughts drift with the caravans. At night they make camp, and the desert grows cold. A fire crackles low. Someone unrolls a scroll and reads aloud, not loudly, but in a hush meant to match the stars. Words traveling farther than footsteps ever could. Ink now, made not only from soot and pine, but from berries, iron salts, and tea. The recipes shift as the lands change, each region lending its own element to the blend. Some inks are brown as riverbank mud, others blue as midnight. Still others shimmer faintly, made with crushed shell or gold. You imagine a scribe in a Persian scriptorium bending over a Quran, the lines of Arabic calligraphy flowing like water, strong curves and long descenders, steady and sure. The same care, the same breath-holding stillness as the Chinese scholar. Separate worlds, sharing rhythm, and further still, Japan, where the art of ink became a performance. Sumi, they called it. Ink painting. One stroke could suggest an entire mountain, a single line, a crane mid-flight. The paper absorbs ink differently here. It blooms, soft at the edges, like fog. You can almost hear the brush whispering against the fibers, and the silence that follows when the image appears whole. It's humbling. You think how all this began from something so ephemeral, the soot of pine branches, the kind of smoke that drifts and disappears. And yet from that, stories were born, laws written, poems shared, promises made, soot that speaks. You turn another page and now find yourself in a scholar's garden, real or remembered. It's hard to say. A low table sits beneath a plum tree. The blossoms have just begun to fall, and a few pink petals rest atop the surface of a stone ink slab. A cup of tea cools slowly beside the brush. There is no rush. The writing will happen when it is ready. You realize that you've slowed to your breathing, your thoughts, even your heartbeat. The ink has worked its quiet alchemy, pulling you inward and down. You feel as if your own thoughts are spreading gently across the page, forming shapes not to be read, but to be felt in the hush of the bookshop. The story continues, not just on the page, but in the space around you. Every book in this room was made possible by someone who once ground ink in a bowl, who once waited for the rain to stop so paper could dry flat in the sun. Knowledge came not in thunderclaps, but in soft repetition, grinding, writing, reading, sharing. And even now, the ink is still alive. It glistens faintly in the candlelight, still wet in places, like dew on leaves. You close the silk-bound book with care, the fabric folding like the sleeve of a robe. Just beside you, another volume rests beneath a fold of linen. Its corners are brass-capped, its pages thick and tinted by sand. Perhaps it traveled far, from a desert, from a caravan, and inside, the story of how paper crossed oceans still waits to be read. Margins and murmurs. A quiet alcove holds books filled with other people's secrets, pressed flowers, scrawled notes, tiny sketches of half-forgotten dreams. Your hand lingers on a margin, tracing someone's sleepy thought from long ago. Each book is a memory, with fingerprints, each scribble a whisper shared across time. And as you read, the books begin to read you back. You step softly into a smaller room off the main corridor of the shop, an alcove sheltered by a low arch, where the shelves curve inward like arms in mid-embrace. The light here is softer, filtered through frosted panes and the flutter of curtains that seem to barely breathe. You pause a moment, taking in the hush. It's quieter here than anywhere else, a silence that feels not empty, but full, as though the walls themselves are listening. The books here are different, less pristine. Their covers are worn and creased, their spines bowed gently from years of being opened again and again. You feel their presence not as objects, but as companions, as if each one holds a life it has lived alongside someone else. You take one from the shelf without reading the title, guided more by feeling than by purpose. The cloth cover is frayed at the edges, a faded green with threads of gold woven faintly through it, like moss sprinkled with early frost. As you open the first few pages, something flutters free and drifts downward, a pressed flower, paper thin and golden brown. You kneel to pick it up. Its petals are translucent, like memory itself. It smells faintly of old tea and wind. You wonder who placed it there. Was it a lover's gift? A souvenir from a walk? A way of marking a moment worth returning to? You turn the pages slowly. Along the margins, faint pencil marks appear, underlines, circled words, exclamations softened by time. There's a scribbled date in the corner of one page, October 1914. Just a whisper of handwriting, but somehow it shifts the weight of the page. Now you're not alone. Someone else was here. Someone with thoughts and questions and emotions that bled quietly into the paper. You smile at a little sketch, a bird, drawn beside a poem about flight. The drawing is clumsy but sweet, done quickly in the space of a moment. Perhaps it was done by candlelight, or on a train, or while waiting for someone who never came. The ink bleeds slightly at the edges, imperfect and beautiful. You begin to notice how many books here are marked, not defaced, nothing angry, nothing careless, just alive. Notes in the corners, doodles, small notes to the self. You imagine a reader from a century ago reading this same line, pausing, sighing, and writing simply, yes. That one word, placed gently like a stone in a stream, ripples outward into your own quiet understanding. You realize that these marks are not noise, but harmony. The book holds not just the author's voice, but every voice that came after. Each reader's pause and gasp and giggle and grief. A library of margins. You think of marginalia, the name for such annotations, and how, for centuries, they've followed books like shadows. In medieval texts, monks doodled in the borders, cats chasing mice, faces peeking around columns, strange beasts curled among the vines of illuminated pages. Margins weren't boundaries, they were play spaces, a place to speak without speaking. And later, when printing presses made books more common, the tradition continued. Thinkers left each other notes in the margins of philosophy and science. Students underlined fervently in faded ink, Lovers exchanged thoughts in the pages of novels, as though the book itself were a secret messenger. You turn another page and find a message scrawled in tiny cursive. I hope whoever finds this knows they are not alone. It stops you. For a moment, your breath catches in your chest, not from fear, but from recognition. Whoever wrote it could not have known you would be here, and yet, somehow, they did. You hold the book a little closer, as if in response. You begin to see reading not as a solitary act, but as an ongoing conversation, a soft echo passed forward. We do not read alone. We read with ghosts, with strangers, with friends we will never meet. The books here are layered like time capsules, their annotations fossilized in pencil and ink. You imagine all the hands that turned these pages before yours, some smooth and young, some wrinkled with age, some trembling, others firm, all of them reaching, searching, lingering in the silence between words. You close the book gently and return it to the shelf. And yet, a part of it remains with you, like a quiet presence that now walks beside you. As you move deeper into the alcove, you begin to hear it, a sound not of pages, but of memory murmuring softly between the lines. You pull another book from the shelf. Inside, someone has listed page numbers on the inside cover, tiny hearts, drawn next to poems. One passage is bracketed in bold ink. Even the stars are stories written in light. You pause and reread it. It feels like something you already knew, but had forgotten. Your thoughts grow still. The room deepens in color. The shadows settle, long and warm. You find yourself breathing slower, as if trying not to disturb the traces of others. Sleep circles the edges of your thoughts, tugging you gently from within. You realize now that every annotation, every pressed flower, every bent corner is an act of faith. Faith that someone, someday, might care enough to look, might need the same words, might feel the same way. The margin becomes a whisper. You are not alone. I was here to dot you. Press your palm flat against a page. The paper is cool, but not cold. There's a softness to it, as though it remembers every hand that's touched it, as though it carries more than just text. It carries presence, a kind of shared dreaming. You wonder then, if these books carry not just the past, but pieces of their readers as well. The way a teacup might hold the warmth of every hand that held it. The way a well-worn bench remembers the weight of rest. Just as you begin to drift further into that thought, your eyes fall on a leather-bound book at the edge of the shelf. Its corners are capped in brass, and its pages bulge slightly, as if holding something inside. Perhaps it traveled far across sand or snow and holds songs written not in words, but in music. When paper sang. You find a drawer of music scores tucked inside a book that smells of cedar and candle. Wax. Your thoughts sway with 18th century melodies, drifting through rooms where composers etched lullabies on parchment. A clockmaker's blueprints sing alongside them, ticking like verse beneath quiet gears and time. Ink and music waltz together, leading you gently toward dreams. It begins with a creak, a soft, wooden sound as you slide open a shallow drawer beneath a writing desk. The air is cool and still, and dust lifts gently into the golden light. Inside the drawer, a sheaf of delicate papers, yellowed at the edges curled like the corners of a long-forgotten smile. The pages are covered in loops and lines, notes, dancing along a staff like birds in formation. You lift one carefully, and the scent rises. Cedarwood, beeswax, something faintly metallic, like old strings. You recognize it as a score, music, handwritten in dark brown ink. Each note is carefully placed, precise and small, yet carrying the suggestion of something vast and emotional. The ink flows as though the composer's breath still lingers on the page. You sit beside the window and hold the score up to the light. The stave lines shimmer faintly, as if still vibrating from the last performance. You do not need to read music to feel what's written there. The tempo sways like curtains in a warm evening breeze. A soft piano passage, perhaps, or a violin line rising like dusk through a quiet village. In your mind, the room around you shifts. You see a candlelit chamber, 18th century Vienna, perhaps, where a man in a waistcoat leans over the very same page, quill in hand. He hums quietly, marking notes with delicate urgency, not from pressure, but from love. Music, not for fame, but for sleep, for stillness, for someone listening alone in the night. You think about the strange magic of notation, the way sound is captured in silence, just ink and paper. Yet, when read aloud, it blooms into time itself. Notes become breath, rhythm becomes movement, silence becomes music. Your eyes follow the clefs and crescendos, the tiny markings that shape how a piece is played. Allegro, piano, ritardando, Italian words that are more than instructions. They are invitations. They speak not just of how to play, but how to feel. And beneath the paper, beneath even the melody, you sense something deeper, that music, like story, is a form of memory, a way to hold on to emotion when words are too heavy or too small. When speech dissolves, song remains. You turn to the next sheet and find a sketch beside the notes, a clock drawn in careful graphite, its gears exposed like a blooming flower, not random, not out of place. You begin to understand this is not just a score, it's part of a journal. The composer and the clockmaker, perhaps, were the same. You lean closer, imagining the hands that moved between melody and mechanism. Clocks and music share a language, beats and ticks, precision and pause. A composer arranges time as a watchmaker arranges gears. Both chase rhythm, both craft moments. You picture a small workshop, A room where wooden metronomes sit beside tuning. Forks and delicate cogs lie in velvet trays. The air smells of oil and varnish. Here, music is measured in seconds, and seconds in song. You hear the ticking begin, not loud, not intrusive, just steady, like the soft ticking of a grandfather clock in the next room. It anchors you, guides you. It is the heartbeat of the silence. You let your thoughts follow the sound, deeper still, to the ancient origins of music and time. Long before watches, humans watched the sky, the sun, the stars, the rhythm of light and shadow. We marked time in moon phases and tide swells, in bird migrations and seasonal rains. But within us, too, rhythms pulsed, heartbeats, footsteps, breathing. Even now, your breath falls into rhythm with the imagined music. Inhale, pause, exhale, rest. The silence between notes becomes as meaningful as the notes themselves. In this space, music teaches you how to wait, how to listen, how to trust that the next note will come. Even if you do not rush to find it, you turn another page. The music here is lighter, almost playful. Dotted notes leap across the staff like raindrops skipping across a roof. There's a phrase scrawled in the corner, almost hidden in the margin, to be played as if daydreaming. You smile. What a lovely instruction, not precise, but intuitive. To play something not with perfect control, but with wonder, as if dreaming aloud. You think of lullabies, simple melodies sung over centuries. No need for sheet music, no need for theory, just voice and closeness and repetition. Cradle songs shaped by culture, language, longing. Each one a soft shield against the night, and behind each the same human truth. That sound can comfort, that a tune can protect. You run your fingers over the paper again, now aware of all the invisible voices it holds. The composers, the singers, the listeners, the sleepers. Generations of ears tilted to quiet rooms, waiting for music to say what cannot be said outside. The rain begins, not heavy, just enough to blur the edges of the afternoon. The drops tap against the glass, and it seems the rhythm joins the score in your hands. Nature joins the orchestra. You let your eyes close. The melody continues in your mind, soft and unhurried. You wonder how many songs were written not for performance, but for solitude, for quiet rooms like this one, for someone alone with their thoughts, searching for a sound that feels like home. You return the pages to the drawer, smoothing them down like sheets before sleep. They rest beneath your fingertips like warm parchment, not silent, but sleeping, and just beyond the desk. You notice the edge of a book sticking out from behind a curtain, its spine cracked, its pages thick and uneven. Perhaps within it lies a map not of notes, but of dust and ash and silver leaf, a mirror made of paper, waiting to show you your own reflection. When the bookshop took its breath, near the back of the shop, where the light is lowest, you discover a final book, blank, save for a mirror tucked between the pages. You see not your face, but your thoughts, softened by story, slowed by wonder. Each word you've read has settled, like snow in your memory. As you close the cover, twilight folds around you like a blanket, and the bookshop breathes its final sigh. You walk slowly now, each step cushioned by time. The hush of the bookshop is deeper here, near the back, where light moves in threads, thin and drowsy, like the last rays of a sleepy afternoon sun. The floorboards creak gently beneath you, not in protest, but in welcome, as though they recognize the pace of someone who has read too much to rush. The shelves lean closer together here. Dust hangs suspended in the air, catching the low light like drifting pollen. There's something older in this part of the shop, something quieter. These are the shelves that do not ask to be seen, yet are never truly forgotten. You move your hand along the spines, their titles barely legible, faded gold lettering worn by countless brushes of passing fingers. And then, just before the wall turns to shadow, you see it, a book, resting alone on a narrow pedestal, tucked in the curve of the shelf's final bend. Its cover is a pale, soft leather, not white, but the color of paper steeped in twilight. There is no title on the spine, no author's name, just a barely visible stitching, like a seam in a sleeping sky. You reach out. The leather is cool beneath your fingers, and when you lift the book, it yields easily, as though it has been waiting just for you. It is lighter than expected. You open the cover and pause. The pages are blank, not empty, but expectant. Each sheet breathes softly, as if holding its breath. They are thick, fibrous, and faintly warm, like paper made not to be read, but to remember. You flip slowly, page by page, still blank, still silent, until the middle. Tucked gently between the folds of two untouched pages, there is a mirror. You stop. It is no larger than your palm, framed in a thin border of brass. Its surface is not perfect. There are faint smudges, tiny cracks, the kind that show age, not neglect. You lift it and find yourself reflected, but not clearly. The image you see isn't quite your face. Instead, it's a suggestion, the curve of your breath against the glass, the glint of candlelight in your eyes, the way your thoughts seem to pool around your reflection like ripples in still water. And in that moment, you realize the mirror shows not what you are, but where you've been. The scrolls beneath the stone, the rain-slicked ink slabs, the murmuring margins, the lullabies written in time. Every page you turned, every whisper you followed, all of them now softened into memory. Resting gently behind your eyes, you place the mirror back between the pages and hold the book closer. It has not been written yet, but it is full. You close it slowly, and the soft thud of its cover echoes like a final heartbeat of story. You sit in the quiet, the book on your lap, and you listen. You hear nothing at first, only the silence of a place that is almost asleep. But then, slowly, you begin to notice the layers within the stillness, the way the wood stretches as it settles, the hush of dust returning to its shelf, the faint creak of paper breathing back into itself, and somewhere nearby, a page turns on its own. You wonder, if a book is never opened, does the story wait in stillness, or does it drift out slowly, like fragrance from a sealed jar? You begin to feel the bookshop not just as a place, but as a presence, a kind of mind, perhaps old, kind, and full of memories, too gentle to be spoken aloud. It doesn't think in sentences, but in rhythms, in pauses, in rooms filled with rainlight and slow discovery. You look around once more and see the places you've wandered, the inkstones, the scrolls, the pressed flowers and murmuring notes, the bench where you listened to silence become sound. Each book was a door, and each door opened not outward but inward. You imagine the people who once sat where you sit now, who once read these pages, who pressed flowers into their margins and folded corners to remember. Their hands touched these bindings, their eyes traced these same lines. Their thoughts, now long gone, still echo in the paper's grain, and yours will too. Because even without a pen, you've left your mark. In the breath you lent to the words, in the way your thoughts shifted shape with each chapter, in the quiet understanding that now drifts through you like fog. Perhaps the blank book was never meant to be filled with ink. Perhaps it records in a different way, collecting not words, but the weight of wonder, the shape of attention, the texture of dreams. You rise slowly and return the book to its pedestal. It rests easily, as though it had only stepped out for a moment, and now returns home. The shop feels dimmer now, not because the lights have faded, but because the outside world has grown darker. Twilight has thickened. The windows hum faintly with the hush of early night. Somewhere far off, a bell chimes, once soft and hollow. Like a cup touched by wind, you make your way back toward the front, your steps slow, unhurried. You are no longer searching, you are remembering. Each footfall echoes gently, like the last few notes of a lullaby. You pass the shelves once more, each spine now familiar, not just as books, but as conversations you once had. You touch one softly in parting, and the dust it carries does not rise. It simply rests. Near the door, you pause. The bell above it waits quietly, ready to ring, but you do not step through yet. You turn once more, taking in the shop's dim heart, the layers of scent and time, the warmth held not in temperature, but in presence. You close your eyes, and in the darkness behind your lids, you see it all again, the scrolls breathing underground, the ink made of rain, the whispers in the margins, the music stitched into time, and the final chapter closing itself, not with an end, but with a mirror. And just before you open the door and let the night fold around you, you hear it again, that soft, sleepy breath of the bookshop, a sigh, not of ending, but of rest. You step out into the night. The street is quiet, wet with rain. Light glows dimly. Behind shutters, somewhere, a kettle hums. A window fogs. A cat stretches on a doorstep, and you think, softly, slowly, that perhaps this shop was never really made of wood and stone. Perhaps it only appears when your mind is ready to receive it, when you've read enough, dreamed enough, slowed enough. Perhaps it only appears when a reader becomes part of the story, and somewhere, deep within your thoughts, the book you never wrote begins to turn its first page, blank and full, waiting not for ink, but for sleep. last page has turned, the shelves are quiet, the light has faded, but the story still lingers in your breath. Sleep well and let the shop stay with you wherever your dreams go next.